The massive Zolarian warships filled the view screen as Lieutenant Kate Mason watched from her position at the helm of the USS Defiant. The only human vessel sent to face the might of the Zolarian Empire, Admiral Vexnar, the leader of the alien fleet, could not believe her sensor readings. "This is impossible," Admiral Vexnar said, her purple skin flushing darker with anger. "The humans send one ship against our armada." "They mock us." Commander Tara Wilson stood beside Kate on the bridge of the Defiant, her calm demeanor betraying none of the tension that filled the air. "They always underestimate us," she said quietly. "That's their first mistake." The Zolarian Empire had conquered 12 star systems in the past Earth year. Their ships were massive, constructed from materials unknown to human science. Their weapons could tear apart moons, their shields could withstand the heat of a small sun. And yet here was the Defiant alone facing 23 of their war vessels. "They're hailing us," said communications. Officer Diane Bell, her fingers dancing across her console. "Audio only, put it through," Commander Wilson ordered. The harsh voice of Admiral Vexnar filled the bridge. "Human vessel, you face the might of the Zolarian Empire. Surrender now, and your deaths will be quick. Resist, and we will make examples of you to your entire species." Kate glanced at Commander Wilson, whose lips curved into a small smile. "Record my response?" Officer Bell, Wilson said, then paused for dramatic effect. "Admiral Vexnar, this is Commander Tara Wilson of the USS Defiant representing the United Earth Alliance. We received your ultimatum to our colonies. We are here with our response." Wilson nodded to Weapons Officer Amy Green, who pressed a sequence on her console without warning. A small projectile launched from the Defiant. It moved faster than the Zolarians could track. It impacted the nearest warship, and then nothing happened. Admiral Vexnar laughed, her multifaceted eyes gleaming with amusement. "Was that your attack? Human, your projectile did nothing." "That wasn't an attack," Commander Wilson replied. "That was a delivery on board the Zolarian flagship." Admiral Vexnar frowned at her second-in-command, Science Officer Krelva Scan. "That projectile now." Krelva worked frantically at her console, her long fingers moving with incredible speed. "It appears to be a simple metal container. Admiral, no explosives, no energy signature. It contains what appears to be water and a small amount of biological material." "Biological?" Vexnar hissed. "They sent us a bioweapon." "No," Admiral Krelva said, confusion evident in her voice. "It appears to be human blood and a primitive information storage device, what they call a flash drive, back on the Defiant." Kate watched as Commander Wilson leaned forward. "Admiral Vexnar, that container holds two things. The first is the blood of our last explorer that your forces killed on Proxima Centauri 4. The second is information. I suggest you review it." There was silence for several minutes. Then Admiral Vexnar's voice returned, shaking with what Kate recognized as fear. "This cannot be true. These recordings must be falsified." "They are not falsified," Admiral Wilson replied. "That drive contains the complete history of human warfare. Every conflict, every innovation, every time we were outnumbered, outgunned, and still emerged victorious. It also contains the specifications of the device now attached to your ship." Kate smiled as she watched the sensor readings. The tiny nanobots delivered with the projectile were already spreading throughout the Zolarian flagship. Invisible to their scanners, the microscopic machines were infiltrating their systems, mapping their technology, and sending the data back to the Defiant. "You should pay special attention to the world," War Sections Wilson continued. "Particularly how humans respond when backed into a corner. Also note that the Defiant is not a warship, Admiral, it's a scout vessel. Our actual warships are still in Earth orbit. We wanted to give you a chance to reconsider on." The Zolarian flagship. Admiral Vexnar watched in horror as images of human warfare played across her screen. Primitive humans charging into gunfire battles where thousands died in single days. Weapons of increasing destructiveness culminating in nuclear fire. Then the more recent conflicts, humans willing to sacrifice everything to protect what they loved, Admiral Krelva said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The human recordings indicate their species has been at war with itself for most of their history. They have developed weapons specifically to kill their own kind. What kind of species does this Admiral Vexnar had conquered many worlds? But all had been peaceful species, logical species who surrendered when faced with superior numbers and technology. But these humans? They seemed to thrive on conflict, to become more dangerous when outnumbered. There's more. Admiral Commander Wilson's voice came through again. We've had 170 years of relative peace on Earth. Do you know what we've been doing with that time preparing? Because we always knew we weren't alone in the universe. We hoped to find friends, but we prepared to find enemies. Kate watched as data streamed in from the nanobots. The Zolarian technology was impressive but not incomprehensible. Their weapons used principles similar to Earth's plasma technology. Their shields operated on principles humans had theorized but not yet implemented. The Defiant's computers were already developing countermeasures. What? Do you want? Admiral Vexnar finally asked. Simple, Wilson replied. You will withdraw from all human colonies. You will release all human prisoners. You will return to your borders, and you will stay there. A formal diplomatic party will contact you in 60 Earth days to establish proper relations. If these terms are not met, or if you attack any human settlement again, we will respond with the full might of Earth's military. You have seen what we do to our enemies, Admiral. Now imagine what we would do to yours. There was a long pause. And if I refuse these terms right now? Vexnar asked. Kate saw Commander Wilson nod to Officer Green, who pressed another sequence. The nanobots on the Zolarian flagship activated their secondary protocol within seconds. The ship's weapons systems went offline. That was a demonstration, Wilson said. The next one won't be so gentle. Your weapons are temporarily disabled. They'll come back online once you've left human space. Consider it motivation. The Zolarian ships began to turn their massive forms, slowly reorienting toward their own territory. They're retreating, Kate said, unable to keep the surprise from her voice. Of course they are, Wilson replied. They may have more ships, but we have something they don't. What's that? Asked Officer Bell. Wilson smiled as the last Zolarian warship disappeared into hyperspace humanity. The Defiant dropped out of quantum space near the 5th planet of the Andromedan home system. Kate felt her stomach lurch as reality reasserted itself around them. The sensation of quantum travel was something humans were still adapting to. On screen, Kate, Commander Wilson ordered. The view screen flickered, showing them their destination, Nexus Prime, the Andromedan homeworld. It was beautiful. Kate thought a world of sweeping blue continents and silver oceans, unlike anything on Earth. The planet was surrounded by an elaborate network of orbital stations connected by shimmering energy bridges. But it was the object beyond the planet that drew everyone's attention. A massive darkness blotting out the stars. Not a ship, not a celestial body. Something else. Something wrong? What am I looking at? Kate asked, her voice barely above a whisper. That lieutenant is a Vosht ambassador, Nala said, her normally melodic voice now flat with fear. The thing had no definable shape. It seemed to shift and flow like liquid, but on a scale that defied comprehension. It was darkness given form, a void moving with purpose. Our sensors can't get a proper reading. Science officer Patricia Harding reported from her station. It's as if it's not entirely in our dimension. How long until it reaches Nexus Prime? Kate asked. At current speed, 2 Earth days. Ambassador Nala replied. Is that one Vosht or many? Kate asked, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Both and neither, Ambassador Nala explained. The Vosht are a collective consciousness. They exist as both individual entities and a unified mind. They consume matter and convert it into more of themselves. How do they do that? Kate asked, keeping her eyes on the shifting darkness. They release what we call deconstructor particles, Ambassador Nala said. These particles break down matter at the atomic level. The Vosht then absorb the resulting energy and base elements to expand their mass. Can they be destroyed? Kate asked. We have tried energy weapons, gravity distortion, fields, even sacrificing uninhabited planets to divert them. The ambassador looked down. All attempts have failed. Commander Wilson, who had been silent during this exchange, finally spoke. Seems to me we've got two options. We can try to destroy this thing, or we can try to communicate with it. Make it understand that consuming inhabited worlds is not acceptable. The ambassador shook her head. We have attempted communication thousands of times. Commander, they do not respond. They do not acknowledge. They only consume. Then we focus on option 1. Commander Wilson said, Lieutenant Mason, take us in closer but maintain safe distance. I want better sensor readings. Science Officer Harding, analyze everything you can about that thing. I want to know its weaknesses. As Kate guided the Defiant closer to the Vosht, she felt a chill run down her spine. There was something fundamentally wrong about the entity. Something that triggered a primal fear response. She had faced death before in space battles and emergency situations, but this was different. This was looking into an abyss that looked backward, detecting unusual energy readings. Commander Patricia reported. Energy patterns similar to quantum fluctuations, but more organized. Almost like a thought, Kate said suddenly. They're thinking. All eyes turned to her. Look at the pattern, Kate said, pointing to Patricia's display. It's rhythmic, organized. It's not random. Those energy patterns, they're like neural impulses, but on a massive scale, Ambassador. Nala moved to the science station, her 4 eyes blinking rapidly, and what Kate had learned was an expression of surprise. You may be right, Lieutenant. Our scientists noticed these patterns, but we never made the connection. If they're thinking, Commander, Wilson said, then maybe they can be reasoned with after all. No, Kate said, they think, but not like us. That pattern is completely alien. It's like trying to communicate with a star or a black hole. They operate on a completely different level of existence. So, what do you suggest, Lieutenant Wilson asked. Kate took a deep breath. What do you do when you encounter something you can't communicate with and can't destroy? You change the rules. She turned to Patricia. Send a concentrated quantum pulse directly into the center of that thing. Modulated to match their energy pattern. Patricia looked at Commander Wilson, who nodded. The science officer worked quickly at her console. Pulse ready, she announced. Fire, Wilson ordered. A beam of pure quantum energy shot from the Defiant, striking the darkness. The effect was immediate. The Vosht entity seemed to ripple its formless mass, contracting then expanding. What did you do? Ambassador Nala asked, her voice filled with wonder. I spoke their language, Kate said. Or at least I tried to. We can't communicate with words or signals, but quantum energy. That might be something they understand. The entity was changing now. Its formless mass slowly taking shape. Becoming more defined, more solid, it's responding. Patricia said, excitement evident in her voice. The quantum patterns are changing, becoming more structured. On screen, the Vosht had formed into something resembling a massive crystalline structure. Dark reflective surfaces catching and refracting the light of the distant stars. Why a crystal? Kate wondered aloud. Efficiency. Ambassador Nala whispered, crystals are highly ordered structures. The most efficient way to organize matter. They're still approaching Nexus Prime. Patricia warned. No change in trajectory or speed. Kate thought quickly. Okay, so we got their attention, but we haven't convinced them to stop. If they think in terms of efficiency and consumption. Commander, she said, turning to Wilson. I have an idea, but it's going to sound crazy. Crazy seems appropriate for the situation, Lieutenant Wilson replied. Go ahead. What if we show them a better way? Kate said. What if instead of consuming planets for resources, we show them how to harvest energy from stars? It's more efficient, more sustainable, and doesn't require destroying inhabited worlds. How would we do that? Patricia asked. The same way I got their attention, Kate said. Quantum pulses. But this time carrying information data about stellar energy collection, Dyson swarms, zero-point energy, fusion concepts. The Vosht might understand. Commander Wilson looked at Ambassador Nala. Do your people have this technology? The ambassador nodded. We have harvested stellar energy for thousands of years. It powers our civilization. Then we give the Vosht a gift. Kate said, it's knowledge. The most valuable resource in the universe, Patricia, was already working at her station preparing the transmission. I can encode the basic principles of stellar energy harvesting into a quantum pulse, she said. It won't be detailed, but it might be enough to get the idea across. Do it, Wilson ordered. The Defiant sent another pulse, this one carrying the fundamental principles of stellar energy collection Patricia had compiled. The beam struck the crystalline entity which seemed to absorb it, glowing slightly from within. It's processing the information, Patricia reported. The energy patterns are changing, becoming even more complex. For several long minutes, nothing seemed to happen. The crystalline Vosht remained motionless in space still, on course for Nexus Prime. Then suddenly it changed direction, moving away from the planet toward the system's star. Did it work? Kate asked, hardly daring to hope. I think, Ambassador Nala said, her voice filled with awe. It understood. It's moving toward our sun, not our planet. The bridge crew watched in amazement as the Vosht entity approached the Andromedan sun. Tendrils of dark crystal extended from its main body, reaching toward the stars. Plasma waves, it's harvesting solar energy, Patricia confirmed, watching her readings. The Vosht is absorbing solar radiation directly from the star's corona eyes. It's still a threat, Commander Wilson asked. Ambassador Nala checked her own readings, which were linked to Andromedan monitoring stations. Its energy consumption is controlled and focused on the star only. It appears to be deliberately avoiding any damage to the star itself. This is far more efficient than consuming planets. Kate let out the breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. We did it, she said. We changed its mind. No, Lieutenant, Ambassador Nala said, placing one of her 4 hands on Kate's shoulder. You changed its mind. You saw what we could not, that the Vosht were not evil or malevolent. They simply had never been shown a better way. Kate watched as the Vosht continued to feed on the star's energy, creating beautiful patterns of light and shadow against the darkness of space. She hadn't destroyed an enemy, she had created an understanding, and somehow that felt more significant than any victory in battle. 2 weeks after their encounter with the Vosht, the Defiant remained in orbit around Nexus Prime. Kate stood on the observation deck, watching the crystalline entity, now positioned near the system's sun. The Vosht had remained there, harvesting solar energy in a controlled manner, showing no further interest in consuming planets. The door to the observation deck slid open and Commander Wilson entered. Kate immediately straightened, but the commander waved her back to ease at ease. Lieutenant, she said, joining Kate by the window. Quite a view, isn't it? Yes. Commander Kate agreed. It's beautiful in a strange way. Wilson nodded. The Andromedans have been studying the Vosht non-stop. Their scientists are fascinated by the efficiency of its solar harvesting techniques. Apparently, it's collecting energy at nearly 99% efficiency, better than anything the Andromedans have developed in thousands of years. So we gave them knowledge, and they improved on it. Kate said. That was the point, wasn't it? Show them a better way. Wilson smiled. That's what makes you special, Mason. Most officers would have tried to destroy the Vosht. You looked for understanding instead. Kate shrugged. I just asked myself what I would want if I were them, to be destroyed, or to be shown a better way to survive. We've received new orders, Wilson said after a moment. The Andromedan High Council has requested our help with another matter, another planet-consuming entity. Kate asked. No, Wilson said. Something potentially more dangerous. A diplomatic situation. The Kalari Dominion has been expanding their territory. They've claimed a star system on the edge of Andromedan space. A system with a pre-spaceflight civilization. Kate frowned. The Alliance Treaty is clear on that. Protected species can't be interfered with. Exactly, Wilson said. The Kalari don't recognize our treaties. They say the primitive species on that planet has resources they need, so they plan to relocate them. Relocation never ends well for the relocated, Kate said. The Andromedans have tried negotiation, but the Kalari won't budge. They claim the Andromedans are too weak to stop them, and given the Andromedans' lack of military, they need us again. Kate finished. Ambassador. Nala believes that after our success, with the Zolarians and the Vosht, we might be able to convince the Kalari to back down. Wilson explained, 3 for 3. Kate said, with a small smile. First the Zolarians, then the Vosht, now the Kalari. The Defiant is building quite a reputation, that's the idea, Wilson said. The Andromedans have given us the coordinates. We're leaving in 6 hours. Kate nodded and turned for one last look at the Vosht. I hope the Kalari are as reasonable as a planet-eating crystal, Wilson laughed. There was a time when humanity would have shot first and asked questions later. I think we're growing up. The trip to the contested star system took 3 days through quantum space. When they emerged, Kate immediately noticed the difference between this system and the Andromedan home system. Where Nexus was serene and ordered, this system was buzzing with activity. Mining ships darted between asteroids, massive processing facilities orbited the gas giants, and around the third planet, a fleet of Kalari warships waited. The Kalari are hailing us, Commander Patricia reported from her science station. On screen, Wilson ordered. The view screen flickered to life, showing a stern-faced female with reptilian features. Her scales were a deep red with gold patterns that Kate assumed denoted rank. Her vertical pupils narrowed as she took in the human crew. I am Fleet Commander Sarita of the Kalari Dominion, she said, her voice carrying a metallic undertone from the translation system. What business does an Earth vessel have in Kalari? Space Commander Wilson stood. This is not Kalari Space Fleet, Commander. This system falls under the Protected Worlds Treaty. The inhabited planet in this system is home to a pre-spaceflight civilization that makes it off-limits for colonization or resource extraction fleet. Commander Sarita made a dismissive gesture with her clawed hand. The treaty you speak of was signed by Earth and the Andromedan Confederation. The Kalari Dominion recognizes no such restrictions. We have claimed this system for its resources. The primitive species will be relocated. Humanely, Commander Wilson remained calm. We understand your need for resources, Fleet Commander, but there are uninhabited systems nearby that would serve your purposes just as well. The Kalari commander hissed a sound that might have been laughter. You misunderstand, Commander Wilson. We don't need your permission. We have already begun setting up our mining operations. The relocation will proceed as planned. Kate watched the exchange, carefully noting the posturing of the Kalari commander. This was different from the Zolarians. The Zolarians had been conquerors seeking to dominate. The Kalari seemed more pragmatic, focused on resources rather than conquest, Commander. Wilson, if I may, Kate said quietly. Wilson nodded. Kate stepped forward. Fleet Commander Sarita, I'm Lieutenant Kate Mason. I was wondering, have you studied human history at all? The Kalari commander seemed taken aback by the question. What relevance does that have? It might be quite relevant, Kate said. If you've studied our history, you'd know that humans were once relocated by more technologically advanced powers. In fact, it happened many times in our history, and in almost every case it led to resistance, conflict, and eventually war. The Kalari commander narrowed her eyes. Are you threatening us, Lieutenant? Not at all, Kate said. I'm merely pointing out a historical pattern. Whenever a more advanced civilization forces a less advanced one to move, it rarely ends well. The relocated group develops resentment. That resentment festers for generations. Eventually, it explodes, often violently. So what Kate continued is that you're not just mining resources, you're creating future enemies. Enemies who will remember that the Kalari took their home. The Kalari commander was silent for a moment. It will be centuries before these primitives develop spaceflight technology. True, Kate agreed. But the Kalari Dominion plans to be around for centuries, doesn't it? You're building an empire not just for today, but for your children and their children. Why build an empire with enemies already embedded in its foundation? Fleet Commander Sarita tilted her head, studying Kate. That is an interesting perspective, Lieutenant. But it does not change our immediate needs. We require the resources in this system. What if there was a third option, Kate suggested? Not relocation. Not abandonment of your resource needs, but something else. The Kalari commander leaned forward. What option, Kate? Glanced at Wilson, who nodded encouragingly. What if instead of relocating the native species, you established orbital mining only? No planetary landings, no surface operations. You get the resources you need from the moons, asteroids, and outer planets. The natives never even know you're there, and when they eventually develop space technology, Fleet Commander Sarita asked, by then you'll have had centuries of profitable mining. Kate said, you'll have extracted what you needed and moved on. Or perhaps, you'd have established trade relations. Imagine their first venture into space discovering that they've had neighbors all along. Neighbors who respected their development enough to keep their distance. The Kalari commander seemed to consider this. Her clawed fingers tapped against what Kate assumed was an armrest. You are suggesting we harvest only the space-based resources and leave the planet untouched, she said. Exactly. Kate replied. You still get what you need. The native species develops naturally, and you don't create future enemies for your descendants. Commander Wilson stepped forward. We would be willing to share Earth mining techniques that would allow for more efficient extraction from asteroids and moons, techniques that might make planetary mining unnecessary. The Kalari commander was silent for a long moment. Then she spoke. It would require significant adjustment to our plans, but orbital operations would be less costly than planetary relocation. And your point about future enemies is not without merit. She looked directly at Kate. Your reputation precedes you humans. The Zolarians speak of your cunning, the Andromedans of your wisdom. And now I see both qualities demonstrated. I will consult with my government regarding this. Third option. The screen went blank. Did that work? Kate asked, surprised. We'll see, Wilson said. You've given them something to think about. At the very least, you've bought time for the natives. 3 hours later, the Kalari commander hailed them again. We have considered your proposal, she announced. The Dominion Council has authorized a modification to our extraction plans. We will limit our operations to orbital and space-based resources. The native planet will remain untouched. Kate felt a surge of relief. Thank you, Fleet Commander. Your wisdom honors the Kalari Dominion. The Kalari commander fixed Kate with her reptilian gaze. You have prevented a conflict today, Lieutenant Mason. But know this: the Kalari will be watching this primitive world. If they prove troublesome when they reach space, we will remember who spoke for them. The screen went blank again. That sounded almost like a compliment. Kate said. Commander Wilson smiled. The highest compliment a Kalari can give. They acknowledged you as someone worth remembering as the Defiant prepared to leave the system. Kate took one last look at the blue-green planet on the view screen, home to beings who would never know how close they had come to losing everything. You saved them, Wilson said quietly. Now Kate replied. Sometimes for now is all we can hope for, Wilson said. And sometimes it's enough. 3 months after the confrontation with the Zolarian fleet, Kate sat in the observation lounge of Earth's orbital station, watching as the diplomatic vessel prepared to depart for Zolarian space. The aliens had kept their word, withdrawing from all human territories and releasing all prisoners. The formal peace talks were about to begin. Science Officer Jill Summers joined her at the viewport. I still don't understand how you knew it would work, she said. 1 ship against 23. The odds were astronomical, Kate smiled. It wasn't about the odds. It was about psychology. Admiral Vexnar needed to understand who she was dealing with. The Zolarians conquered through fear. But you can't frighten someone who has spent their entire evolutionary history learning how to fight back. So all that talk about our warship's a bluff. Kate admitted. The Defiant was all we had in range. The nanobots were our only real weapon, a bluff that saved thousands of lives. Jill said, raising her coffee cup in a toast. That's the thing about humanity, Kate replied, clicking her cup against Jill's. Sometimes our greatest weapon isn't our technology. It's our reputation. As the diplomatic vessel disappeared into the stars, Kate thought about the message they had sent to the universe. The Empire had sent their best fleet. The humans had sent 1 ship, and somehow that had been enough. The beeping of her communication device interrupted her thoughts. Commander Wilson requesting your presence in briefing room 3. Lieutenant Mason. Kate sighed her moment of peace over duty call, she told Jill, before heading to the elevator. When Kate arrived at the briefing room, she found Commander Wilson standing with Admiral Laura Reeves, head of Earth Fleet Operations, and a tall alien female. With iridescent blue skin and forearms, Lieutenant Mason Commander Wilson said, "This is Ambassador Nala of the Andromedan Confederation. She has requested our assistance." Kate nodded respectfully to the alien, who bowed in return. The Andromedans were one of the few peaceful spacefaring species humans had encountered. Their civilization was far older than Earth's, but they had never developed weapons of war. They were scientists and explorers, not conquerors. "We have heard of your encounter with the Zolarians." Ambassador Nala said, her voice melodic and soothing. "It is most impressive." "Thank you," Ambassador Kate replied, "though I was just following orders." The ambassador tilted her head in what Kate recognized as a gesture of disagreement. "You humans are fascinating creatures. You are so young as a spacefaring species, and yet you have accomplished what many older races could not. You stood against the Zolarian Empire, and they backed down." There was something in the ambassador's tone that made Kate uneasy. A hint of desperation, perhaps. "Or hope Ambassador Nala has come to us with a problem." Admiral Reeves explained, "The Andromeda Confederation is facing an extinction-level threat. A species called the Vosht have begun consuming entire planets in their sector." Consuming. Kate repeated, not sure she had heard correctly. "Yes, Lieutenant Mason." The ambassador said, "The Vosht are not like any species you have encountered. They are a collective consciousness that absorbs and processes matter. On a planetary scale, they have already consumed 3 worlds in the Andromeda sector, worlds with billions of inhabitants, and your weapons can't stop them." Kate asked, before remembering that the Andromedans had no weapons. "The Andromedans have no concept of warfare," Commander Wilson explained. "They have never needed it. Their sector has been peaceful for 50,000 years, until now." Kate said, "Until now." The ambassador agreed. "We have tried communication negotiation, even offering uninhabited worlds, to satisfy their hunger. Nothing has worked. The Vosht do not communicate. They do not negotiate. They only consume. And they are heading toward our homeworld." "What exactly are you asking of us?" Kate asked. Though she already suspected the answer, the ambassador looked directly at her with all 4 of her large almond-shaped eyes. "We have observed your species, Lieutenant Mason. You are warriors born. We are not. We cannot fight this threat. But you can. We ask for your protection, your intervention, your expertise." In the art of war, Admiral Reeves cleared her throat. "The Earth Alliance Council is still deliberating on the ambassador's request. But given the urgency of the situation, we've decided to send a small advance team to assess the threat." "Let me guess," Kate said. "That advance team would be us. The USS Defiant is the only ship that can reach the Andromeda sector in time." Commander Wilson confirmed. The rest of the fleet would take weeks to mobilize and arrive. "We need to know what we're facing. This isn't like the Zolarians," Kate pointed out. "We had intelligence on their capabilities, their technology. We knew they could be reasoned with. These Vosht, if they really do consume entire planets, that is why we need you." Ambassador Nala interrupted you. "Humans have faced extinction-level threats before. From yourselves, from nature. You have always found a way to survive. That is what we need now. Your human ingenuity, your adaptability, your courage." Kate looked at Commander Wilson and Admiral Reeves. Their expressions told her everything she needed to know. The decision had already been made. "When do we leave?" she asked, immediately. Commander Wilson said, "The Defiant has been resupplied, and the ambassador will accompany us to provide any information. We need the rest of the crew is already boarding." 6 hours later, the USS Defiant slipped out of Earth orbit, accelerating to speeds that would have been impossible just a decade ago. Kate sat at the helm, guiding the ship toward the newly installed quantum gate that would allow them to reach the Andromeda sector in days rather than years. The technology had been a gift from the Andromedans when first contact was established, as they approached the massive ring structure floating in space. "Ambassador." Nala stood behind Kate, watching the view screen with all 4 eyes. Your species moves very quickly, she observed. Most races would take weeks to deliberate on such a mission. You decided in hours, we don't have weeks. Kate replied. You've lost 3 planets. Already every day means more lives. The ambassador made a sound that might have been a sigh. Do you think you can defeat the Vosht, Lieutenant? Kate kept her eyes on her console, programming the jump coordinates into the navigation system. I think we can try, Ambassador. And trying is something humans are very good at. The quantum gate activated a swirling vortex of energy forming in the center of the ring. The Defiant moved forward, entering the vortex, and in an instant, they were no longer in Earth's solar system. The stars on the view screen shifted to unfamiliar patterns. Welcome to the Andromeda sector. Ambassador Nala said, her voice heavy with emotion. And thank you for coming to our aid, Commander Wilson, who had been quiet throughout. The jump sequence stood from her captain's chair. Let's get to work, people. We have a planet eater to stop. Kate nodded. But as she adjusted their course toward the Andromedan homeworld, she couldn't help but wonder if they had just made a terrible mistake. The Zolarians had been dangerous but understandable. They wanted conquest, power dominance. These were concepts humans could grasp, but a species that consumed entire worlds. How do you fight something like that? As if reading her thoughts, Ambassador Nala placed one of her 4 hands gently on Kate's shoulder. Your people have a saying, I believe faith can move mountains. Kate nodded. And what mountains are we moving? Ambassador. The ambassador looked at the stars on the view screen. The mountain of impossibility, Lieutenant Mason. The Vosht have never been stopped, but then they have never encountered humans before. 6 months after their first encounter with the Zolarians, the Defiant returned to Earth. The ship had been on an extended mission, visiting numerous systems, mediating conflicts, and establishing relations with new species. Kate had seen wonders beyond imagination and horrors she wished she could forget. But through it all, the small crew of the Defiant had persevered. Earth looked different to Kate now as they approached, as if she was seeing her homeworld through the eyes of the many aliens shed. Encountered a blue jewel suspended in space. Fragile, beautiful, worth protecting, Admiral Reeves was waiting when they docked at Earth Orbital Station 1. Her expression was grim as she greeted Commander Wilson and Kate welcome home. She said, We need to talk immediately. The briefing room was filled with high-ranking officers. When they entered, holographic displays showed star charts and ship movements. Kate immediately recognized the patterns, fleets being mobilized, defense lines being established. What's happened? Commander Wilson asked. The Zolarians have broken the treaty. Admiral Reeves said they attacked 3 of our outer colonies yesterday. No warning, no demands, just destruction. Kate felt her stomach drop. Casualties heavy, the Admiral replied. Thousands, dead, tens of thousands displaced. The colonies had minimal defenses, they never stood a chance. What about the diplomatic mission? Kate asked. We had peace talks underway. Admiral Reeves' expression darkened. Our diplomatic vessel was destroyed when it tried to make contact. It seems Admiral Vexnar was removed from command after your encounter with her. Her replacement, Admiral Dorax, believes the only way to deal with humans is to eliminate us. The Zolarian Empire has marshaled its entire fleet, Commander Wilson said, studying the tactical displays. All 96 warships, Admiral Reeves confirmed. They're moving toward the Proxima Centauri system, our largest colony outside the solar system. 2 million civilians. How long until they arrive? Kate asked. 3 days, the Admiral replied. We've mobilized everything we have, but our fleet is scattered. It will take at least 5 days for enough ships to reach Proxima to mount a defense. Where's the Defiant on the deployment list? Kate asked. The Admiral and Commander Wilson exchanged looks. You're not on the list. Lieutenant Wilson said, The Defiant is being held in reserve. Reserve. Kate repeated. For what? The entire human fleet is being deployed, not the entire fleet. A new voice said. Kate turned to see a tall woman in a lab coat entering the briefing room, Dr. Samantha Lee, Chief Scientist of Earth's Defense Research Division. The Defiant is being held back because we need it for a special mission. Dr. Lee explained, the first ship of a new class. What? New class, Kate asked. Dr. Lee activated a holographic display showing a modified version of the Defiant. The changes were subtle, but significant. New systems integrated into the hull. Different engine configuration. The Defiant was always intended as a test bed for new technologies. Dr. Lee explained. Your nanite deployment against the Zolarians proved the concept. Now we're ready for the next phase. And what phase is that? Kate asked. Admiral Reeves took over. The phase shift drive, she said. A new propulsion system that will allow a ship to shift partially out of normal space, becoming nearly undetectable and able to bypass conventional defenses. Like the Vosht, Kate said, remembering the entity that existed partially between dimensions. Exactly, Dr. Lee said. Your encounter with the Vosht gave us the final piece we needed. Their quantum structure showed us how to stabilize the phase variance. The modifications to the Defiant can be completed in 24 hours. Kate looked at Commander Wilson. You knew about this, Wilson nodded. It's why we were chosen for those missions, the Zolarians, the Vosht, the Kalari. We were gathering data. Testing theories. Admiral Reeves stepped forward. The plan is simple. The modified Defiant will use the phase shift drive to infiltrate the Zolarian fleet. You'll deliver a package to their command ship. A package, Kate said. What kind of package? A quantum isolation field. Dr. Lee explained. It will trap the Zolarian command ship in a bubble of altered space-time. Essentially, removing it from normal space long enough for you to deliver a message to Admiral Dorax. What message? Kate asked. The same one you delivered to Admiral Vexnar. Commander Wilson said. That humans are not to be trifled with. But this time with a more convincing demonstration. Kate understood. They would show the Zolarians that humans could strike at the heart of their fleet with impunity, that no ship, no fleet, no force was beyond their reach. But why me? Kate asked. Why the Defiant? Dr. Lee smiled. Because, Lieutenant Mason, you and your ship have developed quite a reputation among the spacefaring species. The Defiant is becoming a symbol, a lone human vessel that faces impossible odds and prevails. The Zolarians fear that symbol. The Andromedans respect it. The Kalari acknowledge it. Admiral Reeves nodded. The Defiant has become more valuable as a symbol than as a warship, and symbols can win wars before they begin. 24 hours later, Kate sat at the helm of the modified Defiant. The ship felt different to her. The new systems hummed with energy that she could feel through the deck plates. Commander Wilson sat in the captain's chair looking as calm as ever. All systems ready for phase shift. Lieutenant Patricia reported from her science. Station engineering reports drive is stable. Officer Amy added. Kate took a deep breath, placing her hands on the console. She could feel the ship's anticipation. Or maybe it was her own phase shift in 3-2-1. Kate said, activating the new drive. The universe changed around them. Stars became smeared lines of light. Colors shifted beyond the normal spectrum. The Defiant moved through space in a way that defied conventional physics, faster than light, yet not using quantum space coordinates for the Zolarian fleet locked in. Kate reported, we'll intercept them near the Proxima Centauri jump point in 6 hours. Commander Wilson nodded. Keep us at phase shift until we're in position. Lieutenant, we want to make an entrance. 6 hours later, the Defiant dropped out of phase shift in the middle of the Zolarian fleet. 96 warships surrounded them, massive vessels bristling with weapons, all pointed toward Proxima Centauri, all completely unaware of the human vessel now among them. We're in position. Kate reported, phase shift successful. No sign they've detected us. Target the command ship, Wilson ordered. On screen, the view screen showed the largest of the Zolarian vessels. Its design had changed since their last encounter. More aggressive, more weaponized. The ship of a species preparing for total war. Detecting Admiral Dorax on the command deck. Patricia said, disengage phase shift, Wilson ordered, and open a channel to the Admiral's ship only. The Defiant shimmered back into normal space, appearing like a ghost in the heart of the Zolarian fleet. Alarms immediately sounded throughout the enemy vessels as they detected the human ship channel open. Patricia reported. Commander Wilson stood. This is Commander Tara Wilson of the Earth Alliance vessel. Defiant to Admiral Dorax of the Zolarian Empire. The screen changed, showing a Zolarian male, his purple skin dark with fury. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "How are you here?" "That admiral is the question you should have asked before breaking our treaty," Wilson replied, "before you attacked our colonies, before you murdered our diplomats. How is it possible that humans can do what we say we can do?" The Zolarian admiral seemed at a loss for words, looking around as if expecting to see more human ships. "Were alone," Admiral Wilson confirmed. "Just one ship. The same ship that faced your predecessor. The same ship that could have destroyed her but chose peace instead." "Prepare the quantum isolation field," Kate Wilson ordered. Quietly, Admiral Dorax found his voice. "You are one ship," he snarled. "We are 96. You cannot hope to prevail." Wilson smiled. "That depends entirely on how you define prevail, Admiral. We don't need to destroy your fleet. We just need you to understand one simple fact." "And what fact is that?" the Admiral demanded. "That distance means nothing to us," Wilson said. "That shields mean nothing to us. That your greatest advantage, your superior numbers, means nothing to us. Now." Commander Wilson said. Kate activated the quantum isolation field. The effect was immediate. A shimmering bubble of distorted space enveloped the Zolarian command ship, cutting it off from the rest of the fleet. The other Zolarian vessels fired on the Defiant, but their weapons passed through harmlessly, the human ship phasing. "In and out of normal space, your ship is now isolated," Admiral Wilson explained. "No communications, no weapons, no escape. You are effectively alone, Admiral." Dorax looked around in panic as his ship's weapons and communications went offline. 3,500,000, Wilson said. What the Admiral asked. "That's how many humans live in the Proxima Centauri system." Admiral Wilson continued. "Civilians, families, children, the people you were going to attack. I was following orders." Dorax said, his confidence visibly faltering. Wilson nodded. "Of course you were. And now you're going to follow mine. You will order your fleet to stand down. You will withdraw from human space. You will honor the original treaty. And you will remember that the next time you consider breaking that treaty, we won't be so merciful." The Admiral looked around his disabled bridge. The great Zolarian Empire brought low by a single human vessel. It defied everything he'd been taught about warfare, about power, about dominance. "If I refuse?" he asked. Wilson looked at Kate, who nodded. "The quantum isolation field can be modified," Admiral Kate explained. "Instead of isolating your ship in space, it can isolate it in time. You and everyone aboard would experience time at an infinitely slower rate, effectively frozen while the universe continues around you."